I mean, running is my passion. Learn how to walk properly. Your joint has been dislocated. It's not moving in the same kind of way. I'm never gonna get the cartilage back. I'm never gonna run again. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here and just kind of found this video when you were searching on YouTube about hip surgery or injury recovery and just found this video, welcome to my channel. My name is Aveen and I do videos on running and vegan fitness and nutrition and recipes and travel and yeah, just general topics that kind of come up in the meantime. So recently I've had quite a few questions and requests to do a part 2 of my hip surgery, hip labral tear, I guess, story and journey. I made a video, literally I think it was like 2 years ago I made this video, part 1 of my hip labral tear story, and I will link that down below if you want to go and watch that. So basically that just covers the lead up to the injury and the injury itself, and it's so cringy like looking back at it now. Yeah, so I was like in college when I made that video, so I was living in Ireland at the time. I'm living in New York now and I am training for a half marathon in May, so I've been doing like a whole kind of running series talking about like my training, like my diet, and yeah, all things running related. So just keep this in mind. I am not like a health professional or anything, this is purely my experience, but yeah, I definitely think maybe it could help a few people out if people are interested. So I'm going to go ahead and do part 2. So part 1 was basically just, as I said, about the injury itself and how it happened, and now I'm going to talk about after the injury and kind of how I dealt with it and what happened and how I ended up getting surgery and a little bit about the recovery process, I guess. The injury itself happened in August 2014, so that's crazy. I can't believe it's like been 3.5 years. So yeah, when I got injured I was in France. I had a really bad fall when I was out running. I explained it all in the other video, but yeah, that's basically the background. And yeah, so when I got back to Ireland, I went to a physio and they thought it was just ligament damage, and she gave me some exercises to do. I was like in a type of pain that I've never been in before. I've never been injured like my whole time like playing sport, like my whole life, so this was really new to me. And yeah, it was really tough because I just had to stop running altogether, and I was like training a lot at the time, so it was like such a shock having to just stop running altogether. I did do a little bit of training on the elliptical because I just couldn't stay still, and the elliptical didn't hurt at all. It actually hurt less than walking, but you know, I was like, I didn't try running at all because I didn't want to make it worse. Like, even though I was really keen on like continuing exercising, I didn't want to totally sabotage my hip and my recovery, so I didn't run at all. I didn't even try. So at this time I also like developed really bad stomach problems. I developed gastroparesis, so that like kind of interrupted and distracted the whole hip thing. So like I was still mightily aware of it, but it didn't, that kind of took up most of my time. I was in hospital a lot with that, and I didn't go forward and get any other x-rays done, even though after a couple of months I was still like, you know, having problems, and I wasn't recovering like normally. I thought it would be like an injury that I would get over in like a couple of weeks or something if I rested it, but no, I was still having problems, really bad pain when I was like lifting my leg or anything kind of like hinging my hip or my hip flexors. It was just, I would get like this twingy pain like right at the top of like my hip, like the joint between my leg and my hip, I guess. So in January 2015 I moved to New York, so about 6 months after the injury. Still kind of thought that it would sort itself out if I like started taking care of my body better and like eating healthier, but you know, after a couple of months even in New York, like around March, April, like I spoke to my doctor about it again, and they referred me to get some x-rays, and I saw a specialist. I can't remember what like type of specialist it was, but he thought it was a stress fracture in my femur, which is like the thickest bone in your body. I don't know, or one of them is very thick bone, so that would have been like a really bad, but like that would have just healed itself. So they did like some sort of specific x-ray to check that, and it turned out that it wasn't a stress fracture in my femur. It was a hip labral tear, so torn cartilage. That doctor then referred me to another specialist who's a specialist in hip labral tear, and he told me that yeah, surgery was an option, but obviously I would have had to go home to Ireland to have that surgery, and I didn't want to, and I had like my summer planned, and I just didn't want to have hip surgery. Like I wasn't running at all during this time. Like I was using the elliptical, but other than that, there was nothing I could do like exercise wise. Everything would aggravate it, but I was still able to walk around and get around, so it wasn't like incapacitating or anything. So he advised, before surgery, he advised more physio. Even though I didn't really have much hope in the physio to completely cure it at that time, I still was like dedicated to trying anything before having to go for surgery. So I spent like the next, I'd say 5-6 months doing like intense physio. I saw a physio here in New York, and then when I went home to Ireland, I kept up the physio. And around about September 2015, which was a year after the injury, is when I decided I'd moved back to Ireland at this stage, and it was when I decided to see a specialist again and go for the surgery, because I was fed up. I was like not like getting any running done at all. I was like super miserable about that. So yeah, I saw a specialist in Ireland, and they arranged like this special x-ray. Again, I can't remember what it was, but they basically had to inject ink into your hip, so it like colors all around the area of like your joint, and it showed exactly where the tear was, and you know how bad it was, and how they could go about surgery. What was causing the pain was the cartilage like flapping. So yeah, so that would, I don't know like how to explain it properly, but that's basically what I gathered, was that it was causing pain from the cartilage kind of like flapping against my joint. And cartilage doesn't repair itself, and I don't know what methods have been kind of developed now to fix cartilage. I have read about things that promote cartilage regrowth, and that's definitely something I could possibly look into in the future, but at the moment, as I will get to, that's not something I need to look into at the moment. So yeah, I basically went ahead and had surgery on October 15th, I remember the date, 2015, exactly 1 year after the injury. I hadn't done any running throughout this whole year. I hadn't done any exercise at all. I can't believe it was that long. I don't know how I managed that long now looking back. So yeah, the surgery went really well. I have to say, I did find the immediate recovery process really difficult. I mean, it was so painful. I mean, they have to dislocate your hip and tear and cut away cartilage. Like that's just, and then put your hip back in. It's a big, huge operation, I'm not gonna lie. Afterwards, it was really, really hard. I was in an extreme amount of pain, and I also joined, and I would advise against this, I joined like a hip labral tear recovery injury group on Facebook, and it was the worst thing I could possibly have done, because everyone was just posting negative stories and really, really heartbreaking stories. And I remember just like freaking out that I felt this pain immediately after my operation. I mean, like, oh, it didn't work, they cut away cartilage, I'm never going to get that cartilage back, I'm never going to run again. It was just such an awful, difficult time. And I was also actually getting surgery on my stomach around this time as well, so it was just a really difficult time. I was in my final year of college, so there was a lot of pressure, and yeah, there wasn't really anyone that I could talk to about it. I just had to really, really struggle through, and yeah, I was kind of hopeless at that stage. But yeah, so I would really recommend you don't go searching Google like for, you know, about your pain and about like comparing other people's situations, because especially with things like a labral tear, it's very, very like individual specific, like every single injury is, and you just cannot compare like your body, your body's reaction, or how your body's dealing with something, or what's happening in your body to someone else, because it's never going to be like comparable at all. It's just not, it's just not like comparing apples to apples. I pretty much started rehab as quickly as possible. It's not the type of injury that you need to stay on crutches for very, very long, because it's just not good for like retraining the movements. I was walking weirdly for ages without the crutches. I think I was on crutches for like 3 weeks, maybe a bit longer. I think I was like resting for a week and then on crutches for 3 weeks. But as I said, it was the kind of injury that you needed to not be dormant for a long time. Obviously there were like extreme restrictions on like the movement you can make, because you do have to let like the joint heal. I don't know exactly what needed to heal in the recovery process, but you didn't want to end up tearing more cartilage, you know, or aggravating or inflaming it or anything. So you just have to be super careful. I got off the crutches. I had to like learn how to walk properly, because you know your joint has been dislocated. It's not moving in the same kind of way. And also I hadn't been walking properly on it for like the whole year before that, so I had like developed like I wasn't using the right muscles anymore because I was like compensating. So there were a lot of things that I had to work on that weren't just because of surgery, but were because of like the whole year of being injured, and you know, muscles compensating and muscles that had just stopped being used. The first exercises that I was able to do were exercise in the swimming pool. So I was able to walk in the swimming pool and swim before I was able to walk properly outside the swimming pool, and I was able to lift my right hip and my leg and kind of do hip flexor movements in the water before I could do them, you know, out of the water. It was about 8 months before I could lift my right leg. I had to really work on building strength in my glutes, on my hamstrings and my quads, because that area is, you know, what's supporting your hip. There's a lot of strength training with like resistance bands. You don't need to use weights to build strength in those muscles. So that's kind of like what I had to do, and also retrain the right muscles to support, like to start working again and support that area. February 2016 that I stepped on the treadmill again, and I did a short 1 or 2 kilometers and without pain. And I felt amazing. It felt absolutely amazing. I was so happy. Now, I had in mind, my surgeon had told me that I would never run more than 5 kilometers again, like ever, with this injury. I couldn't run more than 5 kilometers in one go. So I had that in mind, and like obviously it was devastating when I heard that first. That summer afterwards, I started running again. I was doing like around about 5 kilometers at this time, and that was when I got into cycling. So I went to the Rochefort Thai Fruit Festival, and I did a ton of traveling on my bike. I did a ton of cycling that year. I mean, I did the whole Doi Inthanon, the steepest mountain in Thailand. I did try running up and down Doi Suthep in June, so June 2016, so about 8 months after my surgery. And that summer, like, running was ruled out for me after I did that because it hurt. I ran up and down the mountain stupidly 8 months after hip surgery, 21 kilometers, and yeah, that was not a good idea. And then I moved to Sydney and I joined a gym there, and I started running again on the treadmill. And again, I wasn't doing very long distances. I was like running 6 kilometers, but with no pain, and that was totally fine for a year. Like 6 kilometers was my max. And I'm just gonna fast forward to today, and here I am training for a half marathon. I run 40 miles a week, and I have not had the slightest problem with my hip. I'm obviously extremely careful. I'm extremely aware. I've worked very hard on my form. I do a lot of yoga on the side, which is really good. Like, you have to be very careful with your movements and make sure that you're activating the right muscles. And the thing with a hip labral tear, it's always going to be about your hip flexors. That's always, you know, lifting, that independent lifting of your right leg. It's always going to be an issue. So you just have to work on building strength in all the muscles around that area. And as I said, it's not about building size at all, because I definitely do not have like large muscles around like my quads and around my glutes or anything, because I'm an endurance runner. I run long distances and I need to stay quite light. So I'm not at all like extremely muscly, but I have built strength and conditioning around that area. So I just cannot stress that enough. If you have an injury, look at how you can strengthen parts of your body and muscles around your injury. Like, obviously definitely talk to a physio and a health professional, but that's just something that you should keep in mind for any injury. So yeah, overall it's a happy ending so far. I mean, running is my passion and I'm just so excited to see how it goes and see what other races I can run this year. No one ever imagines having to deal with a chronic injury, and I know there are 1 million times worse injuries out there, but for me, as someone who always played like a sport her whole entire life and never had any injuries to deal with, I mean, that was a major blow, and the whole trauma and psychological side of it is definitely something I want to talk about more, because it's a really major part of it. It's not as simple as getting an injury and then just like figuring out how to fix it. It's just like there are two parts going on here. There's your physical injury and then your psychological kind of how you're dealing with it. Obviously it depends on how bad the injury is and how much it affects your training. As I said, I'll link the first one down below in the description, so that gives like a whole background. And if you have any more questions about this video, like I hope I covered everything, yeah, just let me know in the comments below. So don't forget to subscribe for more videos on plant-based running and nutrition and food and my training, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. So yeah, thanks. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye.